Multi-cloud or hybrid cloud has become one of the most sensational things over the last few years, especially in the technology industry. Everyone that is an enterprise that is globally distributed wants to make sure that their applications are running as efficiently and as optimally as possible with the right amount of reliability and resiliency. And this makes multi-cloud one of the most attractive things that technology has provided in cloud infrastructure space. But the reality is that there is more complexity when it comes to the multi-cloud. For instance, even though we have multiple distributed clouds and infrastructure, because we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, it translates into the concept of distributed applications, which means that these applications will be present running in any kind of availability zone or any kind of public or private infrastructure. And then complicate that with the distributed workforce, a phenomenon that we've been experiencing over the last 4 or 5 years. And then add to that the complexity of distributed customers. And now, as you can see, this becomes a very complicated system very fast. While there are a lot of advantages of having distributed clouds and infrastructure, managing them and ensuring that we are getting the real bang for the buck and the return on investment for our cloud infrastructure and for our applications, and ensuring that our workforce are utilizing these applications and interacting with the customers appropriately becomes a nightmare at times. So there have been a couple of studies that have actually been performed in this particular area. So for example, a study said that 68% of the businesses, they consider optimizing cloud costs a key IT functionality. So their expectation is that IT is going to manage the costs, and they are just going to be there to consume and enable and ensure that we are developing customer-friendly features as quickly as possible. Next, over $182 billion, and this is a very conservative estimate, but over $182 billion, $182 billion have been spent on cloud IT infrastructure alone. And couple that with the fact that 40% of these instances that are running, or the workloads that are running, are at least one size larger than needed, because we want to make sure we have that engineering overhead. We want to prepare ourselves. What if? A lot of organizations and enterprises that have moved into the cloud have moved from on-premise environments where the norm was actually to provision and rack and stack infrastructure upfront, because there would be a huge amount of delay and lead time in getting the infrastructure, racking and stacking them, configuring them, and introducing them into IT infrastructure. So that mentality has unfortunately also moved into the cloud. And so almost everyone tends to think that they want to over-provision just in case. And then 76% of the time, all the non-production resources are idle, like many more often. And if you consider your environments and think about your company as well, your organization, your non-production environments, that is dev test, for example, they might always be running. They may not be turned on. They would be idle. Like testing and development may not happen continuously throughout. So that causes waste as well. And then finally, and this is the thing that a lot of businesses, they do express concern, especially when you're in a highly regulated environment, is that over 90% of the businesses, they express concern about cloud security, about isolated segment, microsegmentation, making sure that they're able to comply to CCPA, GDPR, HIPAA, HITRUST, PCI DSS, you name it. There are so many policies and compliances that these highly regulated organizations may have to consider and think about. And so they're really concerned about cloud security. And now this gets amplified. And this is a personal experience of mine, because I do come from that particular world. This gets complicated when you start introducing multi-cloud, when you start introducing distributed clouds and the distributed application methodology and distributed frameworks. And so this has become a challenge, trying to understand our cloud operations, trying to understand our cloud cost and the visibility. And today, what I would like to do is try to share with you some of my learnings that I've had, some of the things that I've observed, and in addition to it, talk about some of the real world problems that we have. Here's a little bit about me. I'm Gautham Pallapa. I've led a number of organizations in very, very senior positions. I've been a global CIO, CTO, and SVP. I've been in healthcare, in retail, in telco, BFSI, life sciences. So you name it, the kinds of compliance requirements and the kinds of regulations that are needed is very, very close to me, and I'm very well versed in those. I also have a book. It's called Leading with Empathy, and I have a book that is coming up pretty soon. It's called Mastering Enterprise Platform Engineering. There have been a number of mission critical workloads that have actually moved into the cloud successfully. And so I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done with my teams and some patterns along this journey. So today I'm going to focus on the need for FinOps and what exactly does the FinOps solution look like. And then I want to tackle some of the points around build versus buy, because at the end of the day, we do want to consider that. I'll share some of the real world scenarios, for example, and then I will talk about how to build a FinOps culture. All right, so let's get started. And to ground us all into it, I'm going to give a very high level definition. Obviously, this is at a 30,000 foot level. There are much more better definitions and much more ingrained definitions that you can get at the FinOps Foundation. And a couple of our other speakers are going to dive more deeper into it. But for me as an executive, financial operations of FinOps is basically, it's a practice that combines financial accountability with cloud operations so that I can optimize my cloud spend and drive business value. That's truly what I'm looking at. And there are certain personas who really need the FinOps approach. So for example, if you're a CIO or a CFO, you need to really understand your ROI of using the multi-clouds. You're spending a lot of time. If it's on-premise, then it would be CapEx or capital expenditure, for example. Or if it is in the clouds, because of the subscription nature, it would be OpEx or operational expenditure. You want to understand the project cloud expenses, like how much is a project costing, because it's not now considered free. If we were on-prem, they were in many situations considered to be free because people don't take into consideration the amortized infrastructure that's already present. And then obviously as a CIO or CFO, we need to constantly keep seeing if there's any room for savings, especially when budgets are getting reduced and then we are told to tighten our belts and we try to do more with less. This is something that we constantly have to look for, which means that we need to focus on utilization. We need to focus on efficiency. And then we need to look at total cost of operation, which is a TCO, and try to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck, as an example. Next, we have the finance managers, or in some organizations, when you have chargeback or showback, you have the business unit heads. They need to understand, again, project cloud expense from a granular level, like one level down. And then if there's any room for savings, then if they are leading IT, then they need to do chargeback to departments or projects. And then they have to communicate with the executives and with the cloud operators about any potential savings or areas that they can save. So this is the second kind of persona that really focuses on FinOps and who needs it. And then finally, you have the cloud operators. You have people who need to understand what is their asset inventory, what is being spun up, what is being destroyed, the cost trends that they have within the organization, the utilization trends. They need to perform these optimization actions. So for example, if you want to start up or turn down particular environments, or if you want to reduce the services in a non-test non-production environment, for example, especially in dev, you want to make sure that all the services are not continuously running because unlike in private or on-premise infrastructure, in the cloud, it's constantly ticking, the meter keeps running. So we need to make sure that we're optimizing all that. And then we have to communicate with finance and with executives on about the savings, what they've done, all the proactive approaches, the automation that is required, and what they've put in place. So these are the three people who really need FinOps. Now, it's not just about getting the data and seeing what is currently present. So it's not just about cloud asset inventory. It's not about the services that are running. It's not about the footprint and where it's present and so on. A good FinOps solution is going to provide a couple of things as basic minimum. So the first thing is it provides observability. This FinOps solution needs to get a unified view of cloud usage, of cost, of performance, and utilization metrics in real time. That is essential if we are going to make really critical decisions. So, for example, in the retail industry, let's say it's Black Friday, we need to have those utilization metrics in real time, the performance metrics, the usage metrics, so that we can spike up or scale down as needed. So that's an example. If there are things like disaster situations and you have applications that are handling that, or let's say the new phone comes out, and then there are people who are going online to buy that. So an e-commerce application, for example, all these things need to require that rigorous amount of observability. And so this FinOps solution needs to provide it. Next, optimization. It's not just about having observability and viewing it, but doing something about it. So we want to make sure that we are looking at the resources, the workloads that are already running. We want to right-size them. We want to eliminate any cloud waste that is there. Move the workloads around. Let's say that for a particular workload, it's cheaper to be in Microsoft Azure versus Amazon AWS. We want to have the decision to move that workload over there, for example. Or maybe scheduling some kind of optimization task, reservation for resources because we know it's going to come up pretty soon, and then scaling up and down for cost savings. So optimization is the second key thing that you need for a good FinOps solution. Then you want to have governance. You want to have policies put in place. You want to define the financial domains, especially for efficient cost allocation, for budgeting, for showback, for chargeback. And then you want to have customized security policies put in place. Manual intervention is going to really slow down our optimization and the way that we approach things. So we want to make it much more systemic as possible. And so we need good governance. We want to be able to roll policies at a very granular level. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be logical separations because a lot of applications, they run logically. If you have Kubernetes workloads, that they could span multiple AZs or regions. So you want to think of those things and have the right policy governance approaches in. And then finally, you want it to be collaborative, right? You want to reduce the amount of friction that it takes for sharing reports because you have a single source of truth now. And this enables for better IT. This enables for people to take a view and see how they are consuming their cloud, how they are causing costs to go up or maybe down. Whether their efficiency algorithms or their optimization algorithms are actually causing a good effect on it. Those are things that we want to have. So on one end, you have observability. On the other end, you have a byproduct of that, which is a collaborative approach, where you can share the reports easily with IT, with finance and stakeholders. And so we are all working together collectively for solving the problem of cloud operations and potential waste. So this all sounds exciting. And a lot of our organizations have started to go down this path and they wanted to do these things. And they have implemented a lot of solutions. But then you get this age-old question. Do I need to build it or buy it? And so what I want to share is some of my experiences. So yes, I will admit openly that when we started going down this route, we decided to build it because the argument was that, we have internal in-house applications that require customization. Any of the off-the-shelf tools are probably not going to meet our specific business needs, and they won't be able to integrate seamlessly with existing systems. That's a very common thing that we hear. And then We don't have dependencies in case there are external vendors. So we want to own the software. And then we want to have complete control over the software lifecycle. If I want a feature, I want to release it immediately. And so that's not possible if I'm using a generic off-the-shelf solution. So those are the arguments that commonly come up. And in addition to that, people try to trivialize the problem. They try to say that, oh, it is just, why don't you use, and I'm putting some solutions here and some examples. I'm not saying that this is a wrong or right approach, but for example, oh, can't you solve this with the Elastic Stack? Or can't you solve it with Prometheus and Grafana and have Grafana dashboards? Just show it out there. Like you could just put it all into a kind of a data lake and then afterwards massage the data and give me the reports. And while there are ways that you can do it, it's extremely costly. There is an initial investment and then there is ongoing maintenance that is required. And in addition to that, it's time consuming. It delays your time to market and it could potentially delay any business agility. And then it's resource intensive because now I need a skilled, dedicated dev team to do all this, who is responsible for maintenance and upgrades. And so the question I have started to ask after having learned all these things is this truly where your business value lies? And if the answer is yes, then by all means, go ahead and build it. But if this is not your business market differentiator or where your team's delivering business value, always go with buy. Because you have low initial costs and you have predictive subscription fees. You have higher implementation because most of these are usually SaaS-based. They deployed quickly. They have been proven. They've been battle-hardened. A number of other customers are using them already. You have reliability. You have reduced risk. There is vendor support. While people fear vendor lock-in, there is vendor support. In this day and age of OTel and having flexible formats and JSON and being able to move the data around a lot, you don't have that much of a lock-in when it comes to FinOps, as you would think. Maybe with some of the ML algorithms that they provide or some kind of analytics. But other than that, I think it's easier. And then you get access to all these latest features. True, you might have some limited customization and integration challenges, especially for your in-house systems, but you're going to have it anyways, even if you're going to build it. And then afterwards, your license costs, it switches to OpEx. So depends on your organization, like whether you prefer OpEx better than CapEx, but that's something you need to consider. But a buy is always a better approach. And so that's what we did in a number of our organizations. Wherever I've led my multiple teams, what I've done is I've switched over to the buy model. And then what I want to share with you are some of the real world scenarios that as executives and as teams, we really need to have a pulse of so that we know what's happening and we're taking the right decision. So let's go into some of the real world scenarios. And the first one is very obvious and intuitive. You want to have that executive summary. You want to have that quick view, single pane of glass, however you want to call it. But basically, the enterprise wants to understand the consumption. They've invested in this. They want to know the consumption. They want to see if they're getting ROI. And so you want to see what is consuming, what kinds of instances are running, the storage, the networking, the containers, scaling group services, those kind of things. And you have a summary dashboard. So in one view, you get something really, really good. I do want to say that this is one of our preferred tools that we use. It's called Aquila Clouds. And all these screenshots are from that particular tool. There are some of the others, like I've used VMware Cloud Health in the past. There are some like Flexera and so on, but I've gravitated more towards Aquila Clouds because it really gives me things. It's very responsive. It's intuitive, and then it has a couple of things that are like machine learning algorithms that are already built in that are much more easier for me to get the data. So just wanted to share that out there. If you want to learn more, the link is down there for you to refer. But this is a really slick tool. I recommend you all to take a look at it, especially if it's FinOps. The other thing that as an executive I want to know, like I talked about, is I want to know which projects are over budget or which are not. And I want to break it down over cloud. Maybe I'm maybe I decided to go with all four, like AWS, Azure, GCP, and Oracle. And I'm not seeing a lot of spend on, say, Oracle. then I'm like, okay, fine. Do I need to look at it? Do I need to renegotiate the contract? Do I need to downscale? Those are the things as an executive, especially as a CIO or a CFO, I'd really want to know. And those are the other decisions when you have chargeback and showback that finance managers want to look at as well. So this is a really, really sick one. This is imperative. You must have this view for a good FinOps solution. Next, you want to have real-time observability. You want to understand the cloud consumption across the various categories. You want to understand the cloud waste. You want to see the cost trends and utilization trends for each of these resources. And you want to drill down and find out where and why. And while it's possible to do it as scripts, like I've had some teams do it long ago, and then I've seen some customers do it where they have scripts and manual methods that go and scrape through the data and parse it and then massage them and give me the results. But those are usually, they take weeks or months at a time to figure this out, by which time the data is already old. So you want to have real-time observability. Remember, whatever you're viewing is a snapshot at that time. If you're exporting into CSV and then performing some number crunching on it, you want it to be much more responsive. You want it to be real-time. You want to make sure that you can make these decisions right, especially when you have really large events that are going on and you're prepping for them. Holiday season during retail is something really important. Flu season during healthcare is another thing. During the COVID-19 pandemic, like distributing of the vaccine, all those various activities and logistics that go around with it required all this real-time observability. And I'm lucky to have helped with those kinds of solutions being deployed in real time at many of our healthcare providers. And then you have chargeback, showback, and budgeting. Maybe in your organization, you don't have chargeback where you have money actually being transferred from one department to the other. You just have showback. You definitely want to have showback and budgeting at least. So while you're not getting paid for it, at least there is an understanding of how much the spend is. So you want to easily group these resources from the multiple clouds. You want to have logical segmentation of this. You want to forecast future consumption, your shared cost allocations, and then real-time budget alerts, for example. Let's say you're doing showback and you're budgeting and you're setting an alert, and then someone didn't turn off services or maybe a very costly EC2 instance in production. And obviously your costs go up. And so you want to have alerts that will help you with those. And then you want to have rule-based control access for the BU stakeholders or for the finance manager so that they can understand their consumption and maybe pay their share of the cloud costs or introduce methods by which they can improve upon it. And then you want to optimize the cloud resource usage. And this is where I really like this tool. It really helps me because it gives me a full utilization, a full knowledge of the utilization that I have. It gives me the trends. It gives me the recommendations to make the right decision. It gives me the risk levels if I'm trying to size a resource. So, for example, if I'm going from a larger to a smaller, it might give me some risk profile saying that, hey, this application has potentially shown that it needs something higher. Do you really want to go down? Those kinds of things. And then afterwards, forecasting your future consumption. That's always necessary. The other thing that this particular tool does, which I really like, and that I've started to use regularly, is smart startup and shutdown recommendations. So, especially in non-development environments, non-production environments or development environments, so dev test environments, it will automatically tell me whether I should start up and shut down particular things. I can automate it. I can execute upon it. I can schedule it. Based upon the usage trends and patterns, I can set it. And it makes it much more easier and convenient and reduces the costs that I'm consuming in non-production, non-vital areas. So this has saved me a lot of millions of dollars, especially when I've implemented smart startup and shutdown recommendations and executed them automatically. This also goes into the philosophy of auto scalability, auto resiliency. So Kubernetes does this really well. I come from Pivotal, so Pivotal Cloud Foundry used to do this as well, where you have the number of instances that grow up, as needed based upon traffic patterns and usage patterns and the transactions that are coming in. And then afterwards, it scales down, it auto scales down. So you have no human intervention and the system manages it. And so when you think about it, what you are doing is you're bringing that platform engineering approaches and putting a financial accountability layer or substrate on it, putting that perspective on it. And now your platform is not just looking at speed, scalability, security, and reliability. It is also looking at costs or spendings and savings. And at Pivotal, we used to call it the 5S's. And that is the same philosophy that FinOps uses. And that is something that is really dear to me and that I've implemented in many of these places. So I highly recommend, if you have your FinOps favorite FinOps tool, or if you're evaluating one, make sure that you have that smart startup shutdown recommendations at least, if it doesn't automatically execute. So that will help you a lot in reducing the consumption. So this is about the technology. We talked about why we need it. We talked about who will really need it. And then we talked about whether you want to build versus buy. And I shared with you a couple of very common real world scenarios. There are obviously others like tagging, making sure that you have everything in a single pane of glass, the security aspect of things, the cloud security. I haven't included those in there, but there are some that there are some tools. This one does it, where we talk about visibility or a perspective of the cloud security of your workload. So there are many tools that do that. Tanzu Insights is another one that provides a lot of those. But all of this will require building a FinOps culture. You need to have that mindset of continuous monitoring and continuous optimization. You need to have collaboration. You need to have everyone aligned with shared dashboards and shared reports with a single source of truth to collaborate and try to improve upon the savings. It's not about finger pointing. It's about having the visibility to help and to get those real-time insights into cloud spending across all the cloud providers. And then it's about governance. It's about ensuring that we establish those cloud controls, those budgets and accountability throughout your organization. And then finally, it's about optimization. You want to constantly have automated, actionable recommendations to reduce your cloud risk. And so if you build all of these, if you have the right technology, what you are doing is you are using FinOps to enrich your cloud value, be it any kind of cloud. You could be in only one cloud, but you would have multiple instances of those. You would have multiple environments. Or ideally, you would have a hybrid cloud or a multi-cloud approach. And so you want to have that unified multi-cloud management. You want to have automated actions, especially when you integrate with things like PagerDuty or ServiceNow. You want to have that machine learning powered insights because they can look at patterns and understand things way faster and sometimes better than humans. So we want to get that intelligent information being processed to enable quick decision making. You want to have advanced chargeback or showback. You want to have a granular drill down of costs. You want to empower the teams to make those quick decisions. And finally, you want to have a smart resource startup and shutdown, which is so important to save the costs. So if you focus and put all of these things there, and you bring that platform engineering approach and overlay it with financial accountability and drive it with the concept of reducing your total cost of operations, improving your quality of life for the operators, especially the cloud operators and the developers, and then you improve your return on investment, you will be using FinOps to enrich your cloud value. I'm happy to have much more conversations. And there are obviously other scenarios that we can talk about. And I have a lot of failures. I have a lot of learnings. I have a lot of insights that I've learned over my journey. So reach out to me through any of these modes. I am happy to have conversations. If you want to have much more deep dive into the tool itself, I'm happy to help you there. So thank you for having me. It's really exciting and enjoy the rest of your FinOps. Thank you.